Baked steak and gravy. Whose mouth doesn't water at the sound of that? Now, I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that are watching this that knows how to do it, but there's just as many, if not more of you, that don't know how to do it. You love baked steak and gravy, you know you do, but you just can't quite seem to pull it off. Observe. Okay, we got us some bucket steak beef, right? And a couple pounds of it here. It's Friday evening, so I'll be eating on this all weekend. Okay, let's get that out there. Now, I like to lay these out in their whole pieces. I'll get out of the way. I like to lay these out in their whole pieces. Kind of get them spread out here, right? And after my 5-part thing on lumpia, I'm going to try to do this as quickly as possible. Okay, so get them bitches laid out there, right? So, seasoning. I'm going to get some salt, some pepper, and some Creole. Alright, and I've got my bucket steak out here. Let's get some salt on them. Alright, smear it around if you get too much in one spot, yeah. And I do, I'll tell you, I do have high blood pressure, and I do try to keep track of how much salt that I use in my cooking. And for me, this isn't too much. There's some salt. Coming down with some fresh cracked black. Okay. I like to pat that down, keep it on there, flip them over. 1, 2, in this case, 3, 4, 5 of them. Wipe that crap off your hands. Season up the other side. Okay. Come down with that fresh cracked black again. Doesn't have to be perfect, just get it on there. Okay. Again, I like to pat it down to keep it on there, spread it around. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get these straight into the skillet. I'm going to start browning them up. We're not trying to cook them through, we're just going to get them brown on each side, okay? And some of this flavor, the seasoning and stuff is going to get into the oil, and you'll see how it goes, because between that oil and this flour, that's how we're going to make our gravy, right? So, so here we go. Alrighty, so we got our seasoned bucket steaks over there. This skillet has been on medium for a while, and this is make sure, this skillet is stainless steel. It's got a nice wide flat bottom on it, and it's going to hold as much as we can in one time. I sometimes have to do these in batches, but once they're browned up, we're going to put them into this 9 by 12, 13, whatever baking dish. Okay, so here we go. We're going to get some oil down, and that oil is going to get pretty hot right away, as I think you can see there, it bubbling up. And keep in mind too that how much oil's in there is going to contribute towards how much gravy you're making. Okay, I'm going to give this just a second to, yeah, that oil's hot right away. I do want to, I kept these whole when I seasoned them, and it's just so I didn't have to flip over 16 of them instead of, 5 of them, whatever. So I'm just chopping these up into quarters real quick. Sorry about the off-camera stuff, and I'm just very quickly cutting these into smaller pieces. Just a little cross and cross, right? Went across one way, went across the other way. This is going to be pretty dang hot. Let's see how good my knife is. Not so well. Screw it, here we go. This is going to be hot. but the temperature of the meat is going to cool down the oil too. This is on medium heat, by the way. I'm just going to try to move these around a little bit. That's something, man. Make some room for some more. And keep in mind, we're just getting them browned up. Alright. That's plenty. I've got 2 more whole ones over here. So we will have to do this in batches. While these are in here, I can probably go ahead, maybe go ahead and finish getting them cut up into their smaller pieces. You don't want to lay a whole big slab out like that on your serving dish. I'll try. And if nothing else, when they come out of the oven, not a problem at all. I like to go with them until you kind of see the blood start coming up on the one side and flip them over. Again, we're just browning, we're not cooking. See there? Nice little brownness to the meat. Makes it look much, much better. I like to flip it on top of another piece of meat instead of into the oil, so the oil doesn't splash as much. Then just kind of pull it back off into the oil like that. Don't hurt yourself. Okay? You can see how the oil's not as rowdy as it was. So I'm going to go ahead and crank this up. I want to keep that heat going. But it was plenty hot, just sitting there on medium like that when we first started. You want to keep them separated a little bit. Don't let them group up or else they'll just steam. And again, this isn't going to take much. Just getting them going, getting the look, you know. Because if you didn't brown them first, and you know, you could just take and put them in the thing and make some gravy, which wouldn't really have any of this flavor in it, but they're going to be so just pale and god awful looking when you bake them. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do it like this. Like I said, I don't normally do, but when they're done, you're just going to be able to take a fork and cut those out of there. Not trying to cook them all the way through. Get some of the Earl off of there, right? I'm going to let that come off. We don't want an oily mess in our final product. Okay, 2 more. You can see now in our grease there, it's got some, you know, it's not just grease anymore. It's got some salt flavor in it. It's got a little bit of pepper flavor in it. It's maybe got a little bit of meat, you know, byproduct in it. But we've done what we set out to do. We're going to get these over here. And so now we want to think about our gravy. Now this is, I think, a little bit more oil than what I might want. So I'm going to take a look at it here, because that's going to make a shitload of gravy, right? I'm going to get rid of some of that oil. And yes, this oil I am just going to kind of pour down the sink. I wouldn't do that with like Crisco or something that solidifies, you know, afterwards, because that stuff, or you know, hamburger grease or something like that, because that stuff's going to solidify, clog up your pipes. I've taken my flour and I seasoned it with Creole seasoning, okay? And now I'm going to start adding some flour to this oil. How much you say? Well, maybe like that, right? I'm going to take my whisk and I'm going to start mixing this around and letting the oil, or the flour, cook in that oil. And I don't, once I get this flour incorporated in here, see how it's still pretty oily? Well, to me that doesn't make good gravy, right? So I'm going to add a little bit more flour to that. Almost as much again, right? Same thing, kind of bring that around. Let it start. You see how it's starting to clump up a little bit, solidify a little bit. That's, for me, that's what I look for, right? And this is actually what's called making a roux. And a lot of dishes, soups, cooking down in Nolans, your, was it gumbo? Starts with the roux, and the darker your roux gets, you know, there's blonde and so forth. This just happens to start off dark because, you know, they already had the meat stuff in there. And this is also the point when you want to get the lumps out, the lumps out of the flour. And you also want to let the flour cook a little bit so you don't have that floury taste, that mealy taste, whatever, in your finished product, which is going to be your gravy. Alright, so I'm going to cook this a little bit and then we'll start getting some liquid in it. Alright, so I got my flour cooked out of there as much as I think I want to. And I got me some cold milk here. I'm going to stir this a little bit more. Just kind of make sure nothing's, make sure it's, you know, ready to go. Alright, here we go. We're going to start adding some milk. Now we're just going to start with a little bit. Watch how this thickens up. Just add a little bit, start stirring it in. And see there? Look. See how it starts clumping together? Add some more. You can add more and more as you go along, but you don't want to start off with too much. You can see how it's clumped up, stir it through. Keep those lumps out of it, right? Keep going. Good bit that time, right? And like I always say, when you're doing this whisking, if you ain't shaking your butt, you ain't making gravy. Remember old mom or grandma standing at the stove making gravy for you, and her old butt was just going side to side? You thought she's just fat or something? No, she was making gravy. We're going to crank this up some more because we do need this to come to a boil. When you use a thickener like flour, it doesn't reach its full thickening potential until it comes to a boil. And this is cold milk, so you really cool this pan down. And so we've cranked up the heat. We're going to get this up to a bubble. You don't have to boil forever, it just needs to boil. But you can still see how thick it is. I mean, that's some really thick stuff. That's, you know, that's too thick. So just keep it in, see how there ain't no lumps, right? Keep stirring it through. Go ahead and add some more. And so this is a half a gallon of milk, and I've used about half a gallon, so whatever that comes out to. And you just keep doing this. Let it come up to temp, come to a boil, until you see that your gravy's kind of at the thickness that, you know, that you like, and hell with everybody else. Cook the way you like. All this stirring with this whisk is also getting the pieces up off the bottom of the pan that kind of might have stuck earlier on. That's going to bring more flavor to it. Okay. Still pretty thick. We're going to go with more. A good bit more. Try to get to a consistency that I like. And so it goes. If you ain't shaking your butt, say it with me, you ain't making gravy. That's right. Now this is thin enough that I don't have to worry about it burning too much. So I am going to leave it alone just for a minute and give it a chance to start coming up to the boil. And I'll just keep adding milk if I need to. And if you get it too thin, if you put in too much milk and you get it too thin, just let it cook down a little bit, it'll re-thicken. That's starting to get where I'm okay with it. So let's just keep rolling here. You want to taste this. You want to know what your... You want to have an idea what your gravy's going to taste like. seasoning wise, so this is a good time to do it. And don't go down deep. It's hot down there. Take off the top where it's not as hot so you can take a little taste. Just give that a second to sink in. I think the salt is, well, we could actually use just a little bit more salt. It's still kind of bland. Okay. I think it can use more pepper. Okay, so we're going to get that in. Now that it's coming to a boil and we know that it's reaching its full thickening potential, I think I might like to have it just a little bit thinner. And just keep going with your whisk or whatever you're using until it's a uniform color. You can see the white streaks in there from the milk where it isn't really incorporated into the gravy yet. So, you know, you want to keep going a little bit with that. Okay. It's getting to a consistency that I like. I'm going to double dip my spoon because I'm the only one here eating. It's hot. I'll take. Ooh, yeah, that's starting to taste good. Yep. I might, just for arrogance, put in just a little bit more Creole seasoning. Remember, I put Creole seasoning in the flour, but I like to, when I bite my food, I like for it to bite back. Okay, I'm digging that pretty good. That's not bad. Okay, so what do you do next? Well, you just take your pan off the heat, start pouring it over your steak. Okay. And I like to make enough gravy that I can try to cover it. Try to cover it. Okay. I'm going to set that off so we don't bake that onto there. Make it easier to clean. Get that going like that. I'm going to take some foil, some aluminum foil. I'm going to cover this up snugly, right? And pop it into my 350 oven for 1 hour. Okay, so it's bonus time. Now, I did say we're going to make baked steak and gravy and mashed potatoes, but it's going to be garlic mashed potatoes. And so what I like to do for my roasted garlic mashed potatoes, I should say, that's the whole point of this. Just got a bulb of bulk garlic that I got from the store. We'll see how fresh it is here in a second, because when we cut the top off of here, and I haven't taken the skin off of it or anything, but when we cut the top off of it, you see the green, you know, that's always just such a, you know, whatever. You don't want that, but you usually do get it. Okay, we're going to take, again, just a little bit, and this is going to be a little bit easier. I'll use some sea salt here. Get some salt in there. And just a little bit of oil. Okay, there we go. A little bit on top. It'll go down in them pores a little bit. Ain't gonna hurt nothing. All right, just like that. Taking a sheet of aluminum foil like so. I'm just gonna take this bulb of garlic, set it in here, come up around it on all sides, and just kind of seal it off. Give it a little pinch there, a little twist. This is going to go into the 350 oven along with the baked steak for 1 hour. Alrighty, so check it out. You know, the time has gone by, an hour. I've pulled out the covered dish of baked steak, and it's cooling down. Check out this garlic. Do you remember what it looked like when we put the salt and the oil on it? Look at it now. Is that crazy or what? Now, this has been out for a few minutes too, and this stuff is really hot when it comes out of the oven. I've taken a full stick of butter and I've cut that up into, you know, pieces, just so it'll thaw out. I had it in the fridge, it's been sitting out, so it's starting to get a little, you know, mushy. Yeah, see there? And so I'm gonna start working this butter a little bit actually, and let that garlic cool off just a little bit more, because it's still plenty warm. So here's a whole stick of butter, and this is, you know, referred to as making a compound butter. We're going to make garlic butter, right? And you don't have to use this all at once. I only put a few potatoes in the pot to make mashed potatoes, because it's, like I said, it's just me. I don't need a whole damn, you know, family pack. But once you make this garlic butter and you add whatever you want to your potatoes, you can save it for if you have spaghetti later in the week, and you can make garlic bread. You know, go get you a loaf, you know, of bread from the store for near nothing. Slice it in half, open it up, take some of your garlic butter, slather it on there, put some herbs and seasonings on there, put it in the oven, and you know, don't pay for frozen, right? Okay, so watch this. This should come out in chunks. Look at this. Oh, peanut butter time! And it is really hot. Okay. Oh man, that's really hot. But get that out there. You just squeeze out those. Excuse me. Those. What do you call them? The little pieces. Get that out there. Now that heat is going to help that butter melt some too. I got to get that right there. It just, you're not staying. Okay, and it's sticky. Look at that. That's a leaf. I don't need, or you know, peel. It just squeeze. Look, get that stuff out there. Okay, so now we can take that. See, look at that. It's already starting to kind of melt there. Melt that butter. Just start smashing it in and let the heat from that garlic. Look at that. Start melting your butter. And just get it mixed in there real good. Turn it around. Just keep it going. See there? Look at that butter. Just melting from the heat. But you definitely want, you don't want to bring your butter out, you know, refrigerator cold when you do this. Bring it out when you put in your, and this is real butter, not margarine. You know, bring it out when you put your baked steak in, and you put in your garlic to roast, and let that butter start softening up. Give it a head start, and look at there. That is garlic butter right there, my friends. So here we have the baked steak out of the oven. It's been setting for about 15 minutes since it came out, and when it did come out, you could hear it sizzling. I mean, just the cooking, you know, and so forth, and all that gravy. So let's see what we have here. Oh, steamy, steamy. Okay, let's get rid of that foil, or just set it off to the side. We'll want to use it to cover it back up again. I'm going to take a fork, and I think my gravy might have been a little thick going in, but you can remix that here. See how you have some oil up here? And I was talking about how you didn't want to have too much oil and not enough flour when you're making your gravy. So it looks like I might have had just a little bit too much oil, but you can stir this around, get that reincorporated, and you know, it'll be just fine. That gravy consistency is not so bad at all. Not at all. Now, this is piping hot, but I want to show you. Now, you know, when I went to put it in, I took this knife here, my favorite, and I rocked it, you know, back and forth on those bucket steaks to cut them up into quarters, make them smaller pieces, and the gristle was so much that, you know, and this thing's, you know, fairly sharp, that it wouldn't even really cut through it without slicing and stuff like that. But watch it, how it does once it comes out of the oven. So here's a piece here. Look here, watch. That's insane. Look at that. Tender, tender, tender.